to show you is how to make some very nutritious crunchy muesli bars. What I have here is a batch that I made recently. The ingredients make up roughly 5 litres of very crunchy bars. As you can see, they're full of goodness. They're crunchy, they break. So the method that I'm about to show you will make these ingredients. You will need, though, to have a food dehydrator, because making these is based on dehydration, not cooking. So the implements that you're going to need are a large vessel that you can mix the ingredients. You'll need a blender, a large spoon, something that you can use to chop the nuts. Don't use the blender, you'll end up with peanut butter on the bottom and nuts on the top. You will need trays. These are biscuit trays that we put the mix onto, spread the mix onto, and then we're going to freeze the mix. Now these trays coincidentally fit inside our freezer on the existing shelves. Trays need to be covered in a plastic film to make it easier to take the slabs of frozen muesli bar off the trays. Okay, so the ingredients. First of all, I use a toasted muesli. I have tried making my own toasted muesli but ended up with a lot of burnt offerings that tasted not so good. So commercial, but make sure that they are actually toasted, because a lot of them say that they're toasted and they're not. So into the pot. The toasted muesli. We need just under a half a cup, or just under a cup of chopped apricots, dried apricots. We need two cups of shredded coconut. We need 1 cup of processed bran. You'll need 2 cups of mixed dried fruit. Now, the mixed dried fruit that I get has a good quantity of citrus peel in it, which I do prefer, and most of the people who eat these do prefer. So if you don't like the citrus, then just use sultanas and perhaps some currants as well. So 2 cups of mixed fruit, and you'll have to break up the clumps, and any large pieces of fruit, such as these cherries, you need to divide. Half a cup of pepitas. It gives a little bit more of a nutrient plus colour. So half a cup. And the peanuts. Now, I've found that wetting these peanuts makes it easier for them to chop. And I found that by accident because I had to wash the salt out of some salted peanuts. And found that the damp peanuts chopped in this machine at least much easier. So if they're chopped into about 1/3 of the size, that seems to be ideal. So that's all of the essentially dry ingredients. We need to mix those through now. Not too particular because when we add the wet ingredient, then we have to mix it through again. So for the wet ingredient, we use apple mango juice, although you could use pretty much any juice as your starter. And we will need 1 litre of the juice. Give it a good mix to get any of the lower ingredients through. So 1 litre. Now we're starting with 1 litre and we're leaving some in reserve because from batch to batch the ingredients will absorb more moisture, and so what we need to achieve is a mix which is wet enough to be able to pat into a layer, but not so wet that the drying process is going to take so much longer. We need to add to that 5 medium-sized bananas, 4 large bananas, and the bananas as they dry are more or less what holds the muesli bars together. So we're just going to blend that now. We put that smoothie straight into the dry ingredients. And we're going to mix that through thoroughly to make sure all of the dry ingredients become wet. I can see that the ingredients are a little bit dry, so we can add some more juice. Probably 100 mils. So we have the correct consistency of the ingredients. It's not too wet, not too dry. And we're now going to pat it out onto the trays to the thickness of the desired muesli bars. Start from the centre first. Work your way to the edges. So you want them to be around about 8 millimetres thick. That seems to be an ideal thickness for drying. A piece of plastic along the edge helps it stay on the tray properly and lets you pat the very edge down, because it is going to be a little bit thicker than the edge itself. So we smooth it down, making sure that we end up with a consistent thickness. Difficult with some of these trays that tend to warp after constant use. But that's our desired tray. So now we're going to put that into the freezer. And I've found that freezing for about 4 hours is sufficient. So we're removing the frozen tray of muesli bar mix. And the reason that we froze it in the first place was so that we can cut it into muesli bars. And in the food dehydrator, they'll retain their shape. So now we're going to cut it. So this square I'm going to cut into 3, which is roughly the length of a regular muesli bar. And then we just use the carving knife with it and we put them onto the trays. With a little bit of space between them. Don't have to be too particular. You will get irregularities in thickness. You'll have some that will break in two. But it doesn't matter if there is a little bit of wastage. Somebody will eat them. Right. And then anyway, it's going to be a shorty. Now, these go into the Excalibur. I prefer to use the Excalibur because it's a square profile and it's a very reliable machine. The setting that I use is between fruits and meats, so 63 degrees Celsius, and tray goes on the front. Just turn the power on and it's underway. Now I'm going to dry these for about 12 hours. The reason I dry them for that length of time is because my kids prefer ones that are crispy, crunchy. They don't like muesli bars that are soft and chewy. If you like those, then you just dry them out a little bit less. So after around about 4 hours, you will take the trays out and just reverse them. And that's going to give you a more uniform drying. So we just leave that going now, and we'll unpack them after around about 12 hours. So the trays have been drying now for 12 hours. We had roughly 4.5 trays, and as you can see, they're quite crisp. They actually break, and that is the way that my children and a lot of other people prefer them. So with what I've made, I will fill this container, which is a 5-litre container. So the ingredients that I showed at the beginning is sufficient to actually make these up. It's good to keep them in a tight container if you dry them crisp, because they will take on moisture if you don't keep them sealed away, and you like to retain them crisp. Now, the ingredients that I've given you are ones that I find to work. The method that I've shown you is a method that will work. The ingredients that you could use can vary from this. You can, if there's a peanut allergy, use other nuts. Gluten-free, I've made those up using cornflakes, scrunched up cornflakes, or scrunched up popcorn, freshly made popcorn. So there's a lot of variation that you can use with your ingredients, but you'd have to stick to the method. The whole reason for doing it this way is to end up with a crisp muesli bar, which is very, very nutritious. It's mostly fruit sugars that you'll find in them, and obviously the ingredients are very healthy.